Hello YouTube, this is the Bucket coming at you today with the Brico Jennings 9. This is a 9mm handgun made out of complete zinc alloy, finished to make it look like a stainless steel finish. This is a striker fired gun, and I took this puppy to the range today, and I wanted to give you my first impressions, give you a little range report on this particular firearm. Now, this gun I picked up, and I did some research and went over kind of my first impressions, but there was so much negative press about the quality of the materials used to produce this firearm. I was a little bit concerned when I went to the range today, and it kind of showed with what ended up happening. So I ended up firing 10 rounds through this gun, 5 rounds through the first magazine, 5 rounds through the second magazine, and I had no failures to feed, no failures to eject, but I ended up with this striker indicator coming out about 4 millimeters, and it could not get it to go back in. And that gave me some pause and some concern that this gun was not functioning correctly. And you know, when you use these cheap substandard materials like these zinc alloys, these slides and frames will deteriorate and start to cause problems. So I had to make a decision about what I wanted to do moving forward with this particular handgun, and at that point I decided that I just did not feel that the quality of this particular firearm was up to snuff to, you know, keep pulling the trigger on it. So I bagged it up. I will tell you that there was no pattern whatsoever with the where they were hitting. I got 1 or 2 close to center mass, and the other 8 were all over the target. And primarily that was probably not due to the rifling, but due to the fact that this blowback gun was extremely unpleasant to shoot. You felt every last bit of that recoil in your hand. It absorbed right into you. Now with a blowback gun, you are going to, you know, get a little bit more of that recoil, and you're going to feel it more, and that's part of the downsides. While they're very inexpensive to produce, that means that you're getting more of the recoil. Now, my high point, which operates on the same principle, for whatever reason, for felt impulse of that recoil, this just seems to have dramatically less than this one did. I don't know if it's the way that they designed the slides. You know, really theoretically, with this being a metal gun and with it being so heavy, this one should feel better in the hands when it comes to recoil, because it's going to soak some of that up, where this is a polymer frame, and yet this one felt a lot more a lot less recoil, much more pleasant to shoot. Now, could some of that have been that, you know, I had read too much of the negative press with this particular firearm and then just got in my head? Yeah, that's definitely possible. And I had to make a decision, you know, like, you know, things were already starting to not operate the way that they should have. And, you know, when you start to see 1 or 2 things go wrong, you just start to get focused on what the next thing is going to be that goes wrong. Again, in the 10 rounds that I fired through it, it ran reliably. If I had an opportunity or felt comfortable to run 200 rounds through it, I probably would have gotten used to that recoil impulse. But with this being a used gun and not know what, you know, had gone through it, I just did not feel comfortable running any more rounds through this particular firearm. You may have one of these and it may run great, and I'm not gonna tell anybody out there that you know, they made a bad decision to purchase one of these firearms And again, I went out and I bought one. If given the opportunity and somebody said to me, I could get the Jennings or I could get the High Point, I would say get the High Point all day long. They still produce these magazines, which that's going to make it easier to maintain long term. With this being a discontinued firearm, even though there are a lot out there, you're going to be looking at the secondary market to get extra magazines. The holsters are going to be harder to find than this particular High Point. And that's just kind of my impressions or how I felt about this particular firearm. If you liked what you heard today, go ahead and hit that like button. Any comments that you have would be much appreciated. Please feel free to subscribe and share this with anybody else. And you stay classy, YouTube.
I learned a lesson. Never half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing.